Welcome to the After Chat. I'm Michael.
I'm Ellis.
And today we are going to be talking about angels and demons. It's going to be pretty awesome. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the After Chat. Real questions. Real talk. Real life.
All right. So, have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
I have, yes.
All right. For all of the folks, give us a rundown.
I think I wrote a paper on this in college now that I think about it. It's basically like it's a little bit like you don't have an accurate picture of yourself. And you feel, whatever setting you walk into, you feel like you're not qualified to be there. You don't have the skills to be there. You're not, deserving to be there. And so, whatever setting you walk into, you're like, I shouldn't be the one to do this.
Yes.
That's like the short summary. Yeah.
Have you ever felt that before?
Absolutely. 100%. I feel that all the time. We've talked before how we're kind of self-critical people. And I think that kind of plays into it. Like who am I to be doing this? Or what skills do I have to be qualified for this spot? All those kind of things. Yeah.
The first time I heard that term, it was a very revelatory moment for me, because it was like someone describing something that I had felt. Like this was I think 2 years ago at GLS, like the Global Leadership Summit. That's something that all of our staff attends every year. And there was a speaker there that talked about it. And it was the first time I heard it. And I was like, yes, like someone gets me. Like it gave a term and a definition to something that I had felt for a really long time. And I never felt like that until I came on staff and started moving into a leadership role at the church. And I would just walk around feeling that way, like, man, who am I to be doing this work?
Yeah.
And so, no, I think, that's kind of my experience with it. Yours?
Yeah, no, similar. We've talked about how I didn't grow up in church, and so to be a pastor, period, it's like out of all the people y'all could have picked, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. I don't know about this. And you kind of think at the beginning of like a season of your life like that, like, oh, I'll grow out of it. But if you really have imposter syndrome, then you never really do. It just kind of changes how it looks,
No, and so for me, like what I do is I just have to remember I'm not even who I say I am.
Right.
I am who God says I am. So even that inner critic that I think was another word that author used. I wish I could remember her name or the book. I'll figure it out. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But she kept talking about how she had to act in spite of the inner critic. And I was like, that's another word, another phrase that I had never heard before that accurately described. Because you get that inner voice that says, no, like, you're not good enough for this. Like, you're the last person on earth. Or like you just said, they must be really scraping the bottom of the barrel if they're going to give you this role and opportunity.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned to do is be like, you know what? It doesn't matter what other people say about me, like, at the end of the day. And it doesn't even matter what I say about myself.
Yeah.
It's about who God says I am. So that's kind of where, that's where I go.
I think it's a great strategy.
Yeah. Scariest thing you've ever done, and why did you do it?
Oh, man. I'm not very adrenaline junkie, risk kind of person, so this answer is probably going to be lame. But one time I did a ropes course that was super high up in the air, and I did it because somebody challenged me. And that's the way to get me to do anything that I don't want to do, admittedly. So I did it because somebody challenged me and said, I bet you won't do this. And I was like, well, the gauntlet has been thrown, challenge accepted. And I hated every minute of it, but I did it. I got to the end. So
no, mine, I feel like we should have compared answers first, because mine, whenever I read that, I was like, what am I going to say? We did a team building exercise out at Sandy River, and it's a ropes course. I did not want to do it. I just suggested to the team that I'm leading, hey, we need to do a team building exercise, something that gets us out of like the everyday thing, and let's go do something fun. And everybody said, let's go to this ropes course. Inside, I screamed, like not like a very terrified scream. I'm not going to let them know that. Now they know that if they're going to watch this. So we get out there, and I'm like, okay, I'll just take this one at a time. Like I'll do the low level course first. right, and then I'll slowly move up. I didn't move past the low level course, but I did that one, and I was really proud of myself. But I got up to the top of it, and it's one of those where you're just kind of holding 2 wires here, and then you're walking on this cable. Mm-mm. Dude, my legs were shaking, like my whole body was shaking. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm up here. But I've got my kids down there watching, and everybody around me, so I'm like, God, just don't let me fall. And yeah, so peer pressure was a little bit of it. Yeah. that made me want to do it, and then just an opportunity for the group of people that I was with to go out and do something different.
Yeah, there's been several teams that I've been on since I started working here where the leader of the team is like, let's go do a team building activity. Maybe we'll do like a ropes course, and on the inside I'm like, please no, please no. But on the outside I'm like, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. It'll be great. Yeah.
But I love the ones where you just like ride the zip line. Like, yes. That's fun.
I'll zip line all day.
No.
Zip lining's awesome.
Yes, but the ones where you're like walking on like little bitty logs that are suspended like 50 feet up in the air.
Nope.
No.
Or like the like a little platform that it will spin or something. I'm like, oh no. Mm-mm. Nope. Yeah. Nope. That's where I draw the line.
No, I get to the one where I'm at a tree, like where you know, like all the platforms are like built onto a tree. Mm-hmm. Like I get to that tree, like I clip to it, and then I just like hold it for a moment, just like okay, and then I need like a 3-minute decompression, and then I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So if you had the opportunity to be immortal, would you take it? And this is kind of a trick question almost.
It's a good question. It's a good question. So I'm a pros and cons kind of guy. I think the pros of being immortal, the big one that pops into my head is I think it would be fascinating to be able to walk through kind of the different arcs of time and be able to look back and see the entire picture and see it kind of unfold, knowing you'd be there for the entire thing, however long that might be. So that's a pro. That would be pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. The big con I can think of is watching everyone I know and love die while I continue to live. That would be terrible. Also, the other huge con is that I would like to go to heaven one day, and I can't do that unless I die. So, so I'm gonna have to go with no. But I do think it's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, and you see it like especially in movies like Interview with a Vampire, mm-hmm. with the Brad Pitt Tom Cruise one, like from back in the day. Like the one, I forgot which one it is. I don't remember. I think it's Brad Pitt, like, or maybe it was the Tom Cruise one. One of them, like they're just lonely because they've experienced all of those things. Like everybody that they know has passed on, and so that's why he keeps creating little pals, like to stick with him. And then he finds one that he likes, and then he tries to manipulate him into staying with him forever. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of with you. Like I like the idea of it, just because I want to see how everything shakes out. Like I'm just a naturally curious fellow, so I would want to see, are we ever going to go to the moon, or like go back to the moon one way? Are we ever going to colonize Mars? Like I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I'm pretty sure if we keep going, like we will. And I would like to see stuff like that. Right. So maybe like would probably be the answer. But I also think it's kind of a trick because like there's a part of us that is immortal, like our souls are. Yeah. So like I felt like that was a little bit of a.
That's good.
Yeah. And like Yoda says, like luminous beings we are, not this crude matter, which I think applies here. What is a myth you've heard about angels or demons?
The whole angel on one shoulder, demons or devil on the other shoulder. I'm like, no, that doesn't really hold up for me. Like, not to make it, not to Jesus juke anybody or make it a super spiritual answer, but like our earthly nature, our default setting is not angelic or godly or anything to that effect. So to say, oh, it's one on one shoulder, one on the other. No. Yeah. If anything, it's like the demon standing on both shoulders, and you have to make the conscious decision to, seek the angel and reject the demon.
Well, and that's where where Paul talks about like the war, like you're battling with your flesh. Right. Like you struggle with your flesh because that is like my default's not a great one.
Yes.
Like any good that I happen to have in me is a reflection of like God being in me. Right. So, but yeah, like you said, like not to not churchify it too much. I think the one myth that, and it's like you, like with the angel on one side and the demon on the other. Like that's a classic Looney Tunes trope. Like that's where I first saw that. Like Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck would have one on either shoulder, like telling them either to do good or do bad. The other one would be, like I think I mentioned before, where a cartoon character would die, and then they ascend, if they a good one, like they ascend to heaven with a little harp and some wings, and they're going to go chill on a cloud.
Right.
Like and then if someone happens to die and they're not a very good Looney Tune character, like they become like a little demonic, little ghouly type thing.
Yeah.
So I believed that forever. Like that very much informed like my idea of how angels and demons worked, like as a kid. And then it's just one of those things that just internalizes in you, and you just kind of believe that that's kind of how it works.
Right.
Do you think you've ever encountered a spiritual attack?
I think so. I think it would depend on how you define spiritual attack, which we're going to get into a little bit later, but I've definitely encountered things that felt like it was a test for my spirituality, for my faith. Now where the source of that is, where that comes from is, a whole thing we could unpack, but I definitely have had moments where I felt like this thing I'm facing is a test of my faith and my spirituality, and how am I going to respond? Am I going to lean into that, or am I going to lean into the source that the attack is coming from?
Yeah.
So
how, whenever you felt like what were some of the things you were feeling like during that? Like, is it mostly like an emotional kind of thing where you're just feeling some sort of way for an extended period of time?
Yeah, I think it is. I think when I think back on it, like most of the time, it's an emotional thing. It's like maybe a good example is like, I know I should act this way towards a certain person.
Yes.
But my fleshly desire is I really would like to not.
Yes.
Like, which one am I going to lean into? Because I know what the right thing is, but I know kind of the way I'm leaning because of my own nature is not the right one. So what am I going to stand on, basically?
Yes.
Like, where am I going to land at the end of the day?
I would answer yes to this as well. And I've experienced a lot of the same things that you felt. Like any time where I feel like that internal struggle, where my default setting wants to respond one way, but then there's this pull that I believe is the Holy Spirit nudging me in a better way. But there was a season, I mentioned it here before, where I went through like a really prolonged season of just depression and anxiety. And looking back on it, now, not all depression and anxiety is a demonic thing. But looking back on it now, like the solution that I found to it was a both. One, I needed medicine, like to get through that time. And so if that's you, it's okay. Like if someone's ever said like, you shouldn't take medicine because it means that your faith isn't strong, I don't buy into that. Medicine's good.
Yeah.
And I needed it during that time. But I do think that there was a spiritual component as well that started to where the effects of it started to dissipate as I got in more of a right relation with God. And that was just a lot of the feelings and like feelings of failure and stuff that I had whenever like I went through flesh-eating disease and all of that. Like I felt like, my whole life was off course, and, I wasn't who I was supposed to be and all of these things. And so I really believe that was in part a spiritual attack. But yeah, medicine and getting right with God were like the two things that helped with that. What was your perspective on angels and demons before you came to faith? I already kind of answered mine with the Looney Tunes stuff.
No, I think it's similar for me. I don't know that I ever imagined angels as like physical creatures, winged creatures that flew around or something. I think for me, it was almost two sides of the same coin. The angels were like the good spirits, and the demons were like the bad spirits. Now, in terms of what they looked like or where they came from or any of that, I didn't go into that much detail when I thought about them, I guess. So, has it changed? Yes, 100%. Yeah. Which, again, we'll get into what we can discover and what the Bible has to say about it as we go. So,
all right. So, we're going to look at Ellis is going to tackle the angel side of things for us. I'm going to tackle the demons side of things. We're going to look at what Scripture says on all of this, and then we're going to talk about some kind of what to do with all of this at the end. So kick us off with some stuff on angels.
Yeah. So similar to when we did our 2-part episode on David, before we really get into the conversation of what do we find in here, I think it's useful to talk about how do we, like, as a culture, view angels and how they kind of portrayed. So I think a good place to start is in art. Depictions of angels in paintings started appearing as early as the 1800s. They were talked about in literature prior to that, but when like fully fledged paintings and depictions of angels started popping up, early 1800s. So I have 3 right here that we can probably put on the screen. The first one is Jacob wrestling with the angel. This one is by Gustave Doré in 1855. And then the next one is Christus e Gethsemane by a Danish artist named Karl Heinrich Bloch in 1873. Obviously, that's Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. And then the last one is The Angel of the Revelation by English poet and painter William Blake, created between 1803 and 1805. No exact dates with that one. And so you can see, like, across the 3, kind of the human form with wings, in a couple of them, like, kind of the glow around them. Obviously the white robes are kind of a common thing. So that kind of typical depiction of an angel and kind of mental picture kind of dates back to this. And so that image kind of evolved as time went, and it's continued to be part of art today. Now, obviously, there's also pop culture, where we see different depictions as well. The movie Constantine, 2005, starring Keanu Reeves, featured Tilda Swinton as the angel Gabriel, which was, a choice, like a unique choice up to that point. So
I think she can pretty much play anything.
I agree, 100%. Yeah, I mean, if she can play the White Witch, like, she can do anything.
And she was the ancient one in Doctor Strange, right?
She was. Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. There's a show that's still going on now, as far as I know, that a lot of people like, called Lucifer. It's about an angel who falls because he questions God's authority. So there's a lot about what's an angel versus what's a demon in that show. And then one really, like, familiar Christmas movie, but 2 Christmas movies that I think are really good. It's a Wonderful Life. Clarence is the guardian angel who hasn't gotten his wings. And then another one is The Preacher's Wife, where Denzel Washington plays an angel who's sent to Earth to help heal a marriage and a family. So
whenever we first started talking about this, like, Angels in the Outfield was, like, such an awesome movie.
Yeah.
Like, those are kind of more silly, funny angels, though. Like, they come and they help the outfield, like actually learn how to play baseball on the California Angels.
Right.
Little on the nose, but no, like, that was an awesome movie. And then another one that I thought was really cool, it's the Prophecy with Christopher Walken. Like, that one showcases like a second battle of angels in heaven and everything that goes on with that. So, like, those are 2 other 2 movies that I thought were really cool.
Yeah. So all that to kind of paint the picture before we're like, so what are they actually? So the word angel is derived from the Latin word angelus, which means messenger. Translates to messenger. So that's kind of the definition that you'll find in a lot of places for what an angel is. It's a messenger or an intermediary between God and humanity. So that's kind of like, if you think of it as like a structure, God, angels, us. The angels are kind of like the go-between.
Yeah, and you see that a lot in Scripture where it mentions the angel of the Lord came and said this.
Yes.
Like, the messenger of the Lord actually came and told us this.
Yes, oftentimes they were sent to deliver a blessing or judgment or correction, depending on what the situation was. In terms of what did they look like, there are a few descriptions you can find in the Bible. The most detailed one of the most detailed ones that I thought would be interesting to read, was from Ezekiel. And there's some debate here about whether this is an angel or not. But so I'm going to read it. It's Ezekiel chapter 1, starting in verse 4. It says, I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north, an immense cloud with flashing lightning and surrounded by brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like glowing metal, and in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, their feet were like those of a calf, and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings on their 4 sides, they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings of one touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead. They did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the 4 had a face of a human being, and on the right side, each had the face of a lion, and on the left, the face of an ox. Each also had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces. They each had 2 wings spreading out upwards, each wing touching that of the creature on either side, and each had 2 other wings covering its body. Each one went straight ahead. Wherever the spirit would go, they would go without turning as they went. The appearance of the living creatures was like burning coals of fire or like torches. Fire moved back and forth among the creatures. It was bright, and lightning flashed out of it. The creatures sped back and forth like flashes of lightning. So, that is not the human male-looking thing with wings and white robes that we saw in the pictures we looked at earlier.
It sounds like a very terrifying... Maybe that, like, one of the first things that, like, a lot of the messenger of the Lord says, do not be afraid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they would necessarily be saying that if they weren't aware that their appearance maybe was a little off-putting.
Right.
Like to somebody that had never seen them before.
Yeah. And like I said, there are different descriptions that you'll find throughout Scripture, but kind of the things that are common among them are, like, a bunch of eyeballs and a bunch of wings and a bunch of feathers. So we have a couple pictures that we can put up on the screen to kind of, imagine if we can what that's like. But yeah.
So that's the angels.
Yeah.
For the demons, kind of the same thing. There's some pretty cool artwork that goes along with some of those that go back a long way. One of them would be Dante and Virgil by William Adolphe. In my stars, it looks French.
I'm gonna take a stab at it.
Bouguereau?
Adolphe Bouguereau. I'm gonna go with that. Yeah.
All right, let's go with Bouguereau.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that someone from New Orleans would say.
$10 on Bouguereau. I'd like to buy a vowel. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a depiction of Dante and Virgil going down into Hades. I couldn't really find a year for that one, but it's old. Mm-hmm. That one was very cool. Another one would be The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli. Referencing like something that's a very common thing, like sleep paralysis. It shows this woman, she's asleep, and then there's this little demonic looking little critter. I really don't know what to say about that little thing, but it looks like a very frightening little critter, perched on her chest, just sitting there and then looking at the painter. Like it's very creepy. So, but I mean, a lot of those go back to the 1700s. So, I mean, roughly the same time, it looks like the interest in both sides of this thing really, really picked up around there. Just, I wanted to look up some different theories about where these things came from. One was that they're disembodied spirits of a pre-Adamic race, which, that's one theory that's out there. Another one would be they're the spirits of evil people that had passed, mm-hmm. and that's what they became, kind of like the Looney Tunes thing.
Yeah.
From there, like if you lived a bad life, then you became a demon, or if you lived a good life, you became an angel.
Yeah.
Another one was the offspring of angels and earthly women. That was kind of what we talked about in Giants, like the Nephilim of old, like those. Like they came down here, they had relations with females, and then those spirits and those people were evil, and then that was the genesis of demons.
Yeah, Genesis 3, I believe it is.
Yes.
You can read about that.
And then so we do get a little bit of an idea of where they came from in Revelations 12. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. This is 3 and 4. Verses 3 and 4, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. That's kind of that's kind of where the idea, like Lucifer fell, but not just him. He took a lot of the angelic host along with him. Mm-hmm. So what do?
Yeah.
So they try to create distance between you and God. And it seems at some points in the Bible, like they actually took possession of people. And this is from Acts 16. This is a little bit lengthy, but stick with me. So Acts 16, verse 16 through 24. Once when we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. She followed Paul and the rest of us shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who are telling you the way to be saved." She kept this up for many days. Finally, Paul became so annoyed that he turned around and said to the spirit, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to come out of her." At that moment, the spirit left her. When her owners realized there was no hope, that their hope of making money was gone, they seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace to face the authorities. They brought them before the magistrates and said, "These men are Jews and are throwing our city into an uproar by advocating customs unlawful for us Romans to accept or practice." The crowd joined in the attack against Paul and Silas, and the magistrates ordered them to be stripped and beaten with rods, and they had been severely flogged. They were thrown into prison, and the jailer was commanded to guard them carefully. And when he received these orders, he put them in an inner cell and fastened their feet with stocks. And then an awesome thing happened, and they got saved miraculously. That's an awesome story to read in Acts 16.
Yeah.
In that instance, we saw a demon that was giving its host knowledge that they couldn't otherwise have had. So that's one thing that may happen. King Saul, we talked about in David Part 1 how, an evil spirit came and tormented him, and then he needed help being soothed. And you can read about that in 1 Samuel 16, 18, and 19. There's instances of that happening. For him, it kind of looked like depression, mood swings, or bouts of anger. In Mark 5, Jesus restores a demon-possessed man. Starting in verse 6, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on the knees in front of him. This was a demon-shaped man. Mm-hmm. And he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me, for Jesus has said to him, 'Come out of this man, you impure spirit.'" Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." And he gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. And the herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. That demon knew who Jesus was, knew exactly who he was. Another one that we got here is from Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 28. When he arrived at the other side of the region, in the region of Gardanes, 2 demon-possessed men coming from the tombs met him. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. "What do you want with us, Son of God?" they shouted. Again, knew exactly who Jesus was. Mm-hmm. "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" Maybe the final judgment. I don't know. But right. They knew something was going to be coming. There was going to be a showdown between them and Jesus at some point. And this is, again, some distance from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. The demons begged Jesus, "If you drive us out, send us into the herd of pigs." He said to them, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank and died. So not all mental health issues are a sign of demon possession. I don't buy that, and I don't think any reasonable person would. But some of the things that we can look at as symptoms of that seems to be depression, aggression, supernatural strength, perhaps the ability to know things that you would have had no way of knowing. But it's important to note that nearly all, if not all, of these characteristics may have another explanation. Yeah. So I don't want anybody to walk away from this thinking that what we're saying is every instance of being depressed is a form of demon possession or something like that.
Yeah. No, I do think it's interesting. It's in the story of Saul specifically, we see some of the things like the depression and the mood swings and things like that. We see some of those start to, grow in him before it's ever mentioned that a demon comes along. So
he was already insecure and riddled with anxieties before that even happened.
Yeah. So I think it's worth questioning, did the demon come along and just prey on what was already happening.
Yes.
Rather than the demon caused all of that to happen. Yeah.
Like, I think it just amplifies whatever's already going on.
Right.
Like, that would be kind of like how I would look at those things. Like, it sees something that it can exploit. And so that's why when we talk about it here in a little bit, like, that's why the armor of God is so important. Right. Because we all have weaknesses that can be exploited if one, we're not cognizant of them, and then two, know what to do about those weaknesses. And I think like you just said, like, a lot of these things, they were already there. The enemy, or the evil one, or Lucifer, or whatever you want to call him, like, he's referenced a lot as the enemy in the Bible.
Right.
Like, the enemy looks at those things and then seeks to just exploit them. And so that's what we're going to dig into here in a second, right after this clip.
So how do you get ready for this battle? What exactly are we fighting, and when and does this battle kind of happen? It's all in the text from Ephesians 6. First, let's talk about what we're fighting. To put it bluntly, we're fighting the enemy. And I don't spend a lot of time talking or frankly even thinking about our enemy, but there is one. The Bible occasionally speaks about him, though it also doesn't give lots of attention to him. He goes by different names. Sometimes he's called Lucifer, Satan, the devil, the evil one. Even apart from the Bible, though, even those of us who might not have yet ventured much into the Bible, we just from our experiences alone, we can kind of know that there has to be an evil force, a presence, an active but unseen resistance to all things good. But the Bible does help us to see how the devil, how evil has been working throughout history. Isaiah talked about this when he said, "How you have fallen from heaven, you've been cast down to the earth. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I'll ascend above the tops of the clouds. I'll make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the realm of the dead, to the depths of the pit." See, Satan ruined paradise for our oldest ancestors, and he marred humanity forever after. Satan tormented King Saul, and he created riots against King David. He's most famous for ruining Job's life, just to see if he could get Job to curse God. Satan is seen throughout the Bible by prophets like Zechariah and Ezekiel. Satan even tempted Jesus in the wilderness, and he possesses people along the Jesus story that we read. The Bible tells us that Satan actually entered Judas Iscariot and filled the heart of Ananias and blocked Paul's journey in Romans. Over and over, we read about his activity. He was there in the first garden. He was there in the garden when Jesus prayed, begged God to be spared of torture. Peter, a famous follower of Jesus, one time said, "Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." That someone could be you, if you're not protected. Because the enemy has an ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal of the enemy is to create distance between you and God. To create distance between you and God. This happens in all kinds of ways. It happens when we spend less time with God. So if you think about it, busyness is a tool that the enemy uses. That's certainly true for me. Distance is also created when you do things you know you shouldn't do, or don't do things that you know you should. In fact, there's this cycle that becomes evident for a lot of people. I've seen it happen so many times. It goes like this. She does something that's wrong, and she feels guilty about it. So coming to church, well, that shines a light on what's good and right. So she stays away. And because of that, she isn't surrounded by the encouragement and the camaraderie of being around other people who are also in this fight together. And she also stays away from her small group. The distance she feels creates a sense of failure and isolation and loneliness. So then she turns to the things she did in the first place to find comfort. And that cycle spins faster and faster, and the distance grows farther and farther. God never left, but she did. And in the process, she lost the battle, and the enemy won. But you can do something about this. I mean, Paul tells us, he says, listen, our battle, this battle we fight, it's not against flesh and blood. It's against the spiritual forces of evil. In other words, this fight is a spiritual fight, not a physical one. And many folks, what they do, what we in a flawed way do, is we adopt an earthly human approach to a spiritual battle, a physical approach to a spiritual battle, which is exactly what the enemy wants us to do. Because if you fight a spiritual battle with a physical approach, you will lose every time. They require different tools. So this is the first rule of spiritual warfare. You have to prepare differently.
So what he said there, we have to prepare differently. And Paul gives us that outline of how we prepare in Ephesians chapter 6, where he talks about the armor of God. And we read it here starting in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 13. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And I think what he said there, after you have after you've done everything to stand, this is get ready, so that way you're ready whenever feelings or doubt or insecurity comes into play. You're ready for whatever the enemy might throw at you, whether it's busyness or maybe a temptation that you're particularly prone to that comes your way, or for me, it just that negative critic. You need to have your mindset. So that for me, those are the things that jump out whenever I revisit this particular text. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what stands out to me is that almost all of the components of the armor are defensive, which, just indicates to me attacks are coming, enemies are coming, and we have to be prepared. We have to have our defenses ready for when those times come, which is all the time. So I think the point about busyness is a tool that the enemy uses. I know that was just kind of one example he was pulling out, but I think it ties back to what we were talking about at the beginning about spiritual attacks, because that can be a test of where you're going to stand.
Yeah.
What are you going to put what are you going to plant your feet on?
And where your priority is. Right.
Yeah. When you're super busy, you can lean into stuff that's going to make it easier for you that is not the right stuff. Just speak frankly on it. Or you can, lean into the Spirit of God and know that He's going to walk with you through it. So I think that's just one example, but I thought that was a really interesting point. And then I think because we're talking about demons and the devil and spiritual attacks, I think it's important to talk about hell. We don't do a lot of that around here, but I think with this conversation it's important. And I think something that Brian said defines it really well. It's quite simply distance from God. Yeah. So. And I mean,
and you're either going to spend eternity with Him, or you're going to spend eternity separate from Him. And one of the things that he mentioned there was that kind of shame cycle that he described there, where somebody does something bad, they feel unworthy, they don't want to go to some place where it might particularly be called out, and even if it's going to be called out in a healthy way. And then that creates a little bit of distance. And then what do they do to go back and soothe those feelings? Right back to the thing that they did that was wrong in the first place. Right. I thought that was a really good look at how that shame cycle and that inner monologue can cause you to, I'm not going to go. I don't want to hear it. I already know how bad I am. I don't need nobody else to tell me. So what am I going to go do? Yeah. Do the thing that you felt bad about in the first place, because you're just looking for that little bit of peace that moment's going to get you, even though it's going to lead you right back into that cycle. Right. I thought that was a really good example of how that works in a small scale, but you can see it play out all over the place. It's pick your vice, whatever it is that gets you that little dopamine hit in your brain, you're going to find it and you're going to chase it. And so like I said, I just thought that was something worth looking at.
Yeah, no, I really liked the point of you can't adopt a physical approach to a spiritual battle.
Yes.
So I think take the example of busyness. Like if you're in a season where you're really busy with work or with your kids or the combination of all the things, you can be like, well, I just need to work harder. I just need to push myself that little bit more. Or you can lean into the Spirit of God and know that it's going to be with you and He's going to lead you through it. The temptation is a lot of the time, regardless of what it is just, I'm just going to put my head down and I can do it. I can just get through this on my own strength. And I think, what this is telling us is, no, we really can't. And not only that, but we shouldn't.
No, and one of the things that whenever you do feel yourself, because like I'm currently in a busy season. Like I've got 2 kids in 2 separate sports, or in one sport, but on 2 separate teams. And you're going nonstop. So we do a family devotional type, like the 3 of us, we got a Bible plan on our phones with the YouVersion thing. We hit that in the morning, and then, after I drop them off and I go and I get my day started, I spend that 15 minutes in the car, in the quiet, talking with God, and just getting myself ready for everything that's coming. Yeah. Because if you're going to get that self-motivation, that pump somewhere, where are you going to get it at? Are you going to take those 15 minutes, those 5 minutes, those 10 minutes, be like, God, here we are, this is what I'm facing, and then have an inner dialogue with Him all day? Or are you going to have a dialogue with your inner critic all day?
Right.
Like, that's where I have to go.
Yeah. No, I'm in a busy season as well. I obviously don't have any kids, but when I first started working here for the first 3 years or so, I just wore one hat, and now I wear 3 different hats. Yes. And so it's some culture shock to go from 1 to 3, and it feels like, I'm just kind of spinning plates and something is constantly happening. So I have to be really intentional about setting aside time where I'm going to disconnect from all of it and spend some time with God, because the temptation is really there to be like, because there's always something to do. So the temptation is there to just, I just got to keep going, don't slow down. So,
and the one thing that I do want to take note of, like all of that, we got the armor, we got the breastplate, we got the belt, we got the shoes, we got the shield, we got the helmet, but we do have the sword of the Spirit, and that's the Word of God. Like that's our scripture. I mean, Jesus used that look at what He said. Like He responded to everything that Satan tempted Him with in the wilderness with scripture. Like He had it. He was steeped in it. Even if it's just 10 minutes. I mean, you can go on YouVersion and it'll hit play and it will read it to you. I mean, there's James Earl Jones reading the Bible. Like the voice of Darth Vader will hit you with the Word of God. Like I saw it up at the library. It was like a 50 cassette tape. Like it was. I should have bought it, but I don't have anything to play it on. But it was on the little Friends of the Library shelf. Yeah. Like James Earl Jones reading the Bible. I'm sure it's on digital somewhere.
I hope so.
I'm probably going to check that out now. But there's ways that you can stay connected with God and just and keep yourself steeped in the Word, so that way whenever you do need it, it's there. Like, and I found that to be extremely helpful. Like the more that I take it in, it just, you might not need it now, but it digs in deep into your subconscious, and whenever you do need it, it's there.
Yeah. I think if maybe you're watching or listening and you're wondering, well, how do I do that? How do I spend time with God if I've never done that before? Where do I start? I think the Bible is a great place to start. And I think specifically you mentioned the Bible app. We already did an episode on misconceptions, but a misconception I had was that to read the Bible, you had to be in the same space and the same time every single day, and you had to be burning candles and, all that stuff. No, like there's a million different ways to do it, including right here on this, in your car, or while you're getting ready in the morning or whatever. And again, it's 10 minutes. It's built in. I'm glad you circled back to that point, because I mentioned almost all of the components of the armor are defensive. The only one that's offensive
is the
Word. Sword is this right here.
Yes.
So
I thought this was a good conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed this.
All right, last takeaway. What do you got?
I just reinforced the point that I think we have to be able to differentiate between a physical battle and a spiritual one. We have to identify this is a spiritual battle, spiritual attack, whatever you want to call it, and you have to be really intentional about how you're going to prepare for that attack, because the thing we know is that it's coming.
Yes.
And what are the things I'm going to put in place what are the steps I'm going to take. So I'm always ready for when that comes.
For me, it would probably just to reiterate the point that not all depression and anxieties or anger moods or mood swings or bouts of anger are a sign of demonic possession.
Yeah.
What they can be is something that could be exploited, that can that can create distance between you and God. And if you do feel depression or anxiety, it's okay to go talk to somebody and take medicine if you need it. Yeah. Like I had to. I don't feel any shame about it, and I would tell that to everybody. Like if you need medicine, it's okay, go take medicine. Yeah. The other one would be angels and demons and a supernatural battle and all of these things going on. I don't know. Like I don't know really what to do with it. I know that it's going on, but no matter what it is we're going through, I do know this, that we have access to power that's outside of this realm that can be used to help us get through or endure or face or conquer whatever it is that we may be facing. It's available to me and it's available to you. And that's really where it kind of dials in and settles for me.
Yeah. Well said.
All right.
Yeah.
So this was a good one. I say leave us a review on it. We'll get you a After Chat mug. We've also got some shirts. We'd love to see you guys get a shirt and put a picture of yourself wearing said shirt in our Facebook group. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode of the After Chat.
Thanks for joining us for the After Chat. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To be the first to hear our next episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and get notifications for new content. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram at PCC Wired and Facebook at Passion Community Church. For additional resources and links, check out the description. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on The After Chat.